Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel where I talk about general psychosocial issues and their effects on our mental health. My name is Christina Chanya-Lenjo, and today I'll be talking about the school unrest cases that we have been witnessing as a country after the schools reopened after the COVID break. Now, what has been happening is that students have been attacking their colleagues, they have been attacking their teachers with crude weapons. They have also burnt down dormitories, school dining halls, school administration blocks, you name it. And this has resulted in destruction of property as well as interruption of learning. But what is really causing this? In my thinking, I believe that adjustment disorder is responsible for this. Now, I'll explain it a little bit later in this video. Now, schools offer a protective environment for our learners. In schools is where our learners or our students establish friendships as well as cultivate a sense of belonging. Now, when schools closed and students went back home, there was a vacuum that was created. Students moved from an environment where they were confined to an environment where there was a lot of freedom. Then the government imposed some curfew, some COVID restrictions, which of course had its own mental health implications. People felt isolated, there were feelings of stress, depression, and anxiety, and this affected everyone, including our students. Now, parents, or rather some parents, did not have proper structures in place to accommodate their teenage children during this long period of time. They also had no alternative programs to keep them busy. At the same time, some parents did not offer proper supervision or proper monitoring of their children. And so their children had a lot of freedom to do whatever they wished to do. And you know that teenagers, because of their developmental stage, can engage in risky behaviors if they're not properly guided and monitored. Now, students also, or the teenagers also, had a lot of access to mobile phones, of course, and because this was unsupervised or unregulated, they were able to use the phones to plan, very many things, illegal parties, escapades, and also procuring of drugs. Now, you find that because of this lack of supervision and, of course, a lot of freedom, and also not being in the school environment, the students had a lot of time by themselves. And so they had to create a subculture to be able to fill this vacuum. So what happened in that subculture, or within that subculture, they started engaging in risky behaviors. So they started using drugs and abusing drugs. Others engaged in crime. Others were involved in irresponsible sexual behavior. Others got into unhealthy relationships. And we can already see the results of this because now we are seeing a lot of teenage pregnancies and other problems, including the school unrest issues. Now, COVID-19 also came with its own challenges. Some parents lost jobs. People, experienced a lot of pay cuts. So this strained the families financially. And so some of these teenagers had to engage in trade to be able to supplement family income, which is not a bad thing really. But anyway, it still caused a lot of adjustment issues. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic also had its own host of problems. People got sick, people lost their loved ones, other people, because of the restrictions and the isolation, experienced a lot of domestic violence. So there was a lot of trauma happening. I mean, there were so many negative things that happened during this period of time, and which caused a lot of stress in our teenagers and in the general population. Now, when schools reopened, these students came from that environment that had a lot of freedom and a lot of, a lack of control, to this environment that is confining and has a lot of control issued by the school authorities. So what that presents is an adjustment challenge, because adjustment disorder happens during periods of change that can cause a lot of stress. And what this means is that as people are struggling to change from one status to another, they experience a lot of stress depending on the circumstances, which I've already explained. So what happens is that there'll be changes in the way that they think, changes in the way that they behave, and the way that they feel. And some of these manifestations of adjustment disorders include difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed, feeling stressed out, feeling a lot of anxiety, and other mental health issues. And so what this means is that there's a lot of stress buildup in our learners. And that is why we are seeing them burning dormitories and doing all this manner of things that they're doing right now. Now, just to explain a little bit about how stress manifests in different populations, you find that in males, stress manifests through aggression and anger outbursts. And that is why we are seeing that there are so many boys' schools that are being burnt down, because there's a lot of aggression going on there. Now, on the other hand, females manifest stress by talking it out with their friends, by crying, and this really helps them to deal with their stresses. But that does not mean that they cannot get aggressive, or that they cannot become aggressive. So what should have happened really is that the government or the Ministry of Education should have come up with a proper psychosocial support program to help our learners adjust. Yeah, so what there should have been a program just before schools reopened to prepare our learners to go back to school, or at the beginning of the school term, our learners should have been taken through a form of psychosocial support to help them develop healthy coping mechanisms, as well as build their mental resilience. And also they should have also been supported socially, holistically, so to speak. But this did not happen. So going forward, the Ministry of Health and other stakeholders need to also come together and come up with proper psychosocial support programs to help our learners deal with their psychological stresses, or stressors rather. Yeah, and at the same time, I believe that this cannot just involve a few people. It involves, it has to take a multidisciplinary and a multi-sectoral approach, whereby parents, teachers, religious leaders, the government, the civil societies, and other stakeholders need to come together and discuss this issue. Where have we gone wrong as a society? Why are our social value systems compromised? And what can we do about that? What are our specific roles that we need to adopt, or we need to embrace in order to address this issue? And by so doing, then we are able to, will be able to actually prevent such future occurrences. So I hope that this will be done, and many other interventions to help our learners adjust well and be able to engage in learning in a more healthy space. So thank you so much for listening, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, and see you next time.